Every time a game releases patch notes, players flock to the internet to see what grand balance and quality of life changes were made to their favorite classes and characters. Final Fantasy XIV's patch 4.1 brought some interesting changes to a few of the game's jobs and are continuing to push the refinements made with the Stormblood expansion in a better direction. Today, we're going to talk about the Summoner, one of the classes that received some changes in patch 4.1. A lot of people that dislike the Summoner call it the Ruin Mage because you'll be casting that spell ad nauseum. Patch 4.1 hasn't done anything to change that, and no patch ever will, but it has refined the way the Summoner uses that spell. The Ruin Mastery trait is now acquired at level 54 and has been updated to change Ruin 1 into Ruin 3. Additionally, the MP cost and potency has been reduced to compensate for the fact that Ruin 3 is now your primary filler ability. There was a weird relationship with Ruin 3 at the start of the Stormblood expansion. It cost about 1000 MP to cast and would have that cost reduced when you activate Dreadworm Trance. Problem was, with all the MP recovery tools in the game, players would cast Ruin 3 to their heart's content and completely ignore the mechanic. So they got rid of it and the job feels more complete because of it. But don't worry, Ruin 3 still gets a bonus when in Dreadworm Trance. It becomes an instant cast, which gives you a nice boost to your maneuverability, especially compared to the Black Mage. The next change was to Ruin 4 and the further Ruin mechanic. This trait now grants a 15% chance that your pet will upgrade Ruin 2 into Ruin 4, and Ruin 4 has been made an instant cast. This, in tandem with the other Ruin changes, have made the Summoner feel a lot more fluid. Tribind has always been one of my favorite abilities in the game. It looks amazing and it's a lot of fun while leveling up in the open world because of its crowd control, but in dungeons its damage was always completely worthless. That's all been changed. While under the effect of Dreadworm Trance, the bind effect gets removed and the potency is increased while the MP cost is reduced. This is a simple change that bumps up the Summoner's area damage and gives you a new interaction when fighting multiple enemies. Last but certainly not least, Devotion received an interesting change. This ability used to be a single target buff that increased all of an ally's combat stats. Now it's a group buff with the same effect. While its individual buffs are smaller, hitting more targets will make up for that change, but the recast time of Devotion has been increased from 90 seconds to 120. I haven't done any math since I left college 5 years ago, so I can't tell you if this is a buff or a nerf, but this ability does feel better to use. In its original form, you couldn't control the target that received the buff, which was annoying to say the least. Changing this buff to an area of effect might be an overcorrection of the original problem, but it gets the job done. Overall, I think the Summoner is in the best position it's ever been in, especially with regards to the playability of the job. When you're fighting trash monsters in a dungeon and going through your standard rotation, things work well together and you can hit your buttons and they feel good, they do what they're supposed to do. And as soon as you enter a more complicated encounter, you see the full scope of the Summoner's kit coming into play. Ruin 3 becoming an instant cast has viability when you have to move around to dodge enemy attacks. The reduced cost of Ruin 3 outside of Dreadworm Trance means you'll almost always have enough MP to resurrect a fallen teammate, and that solidifies the Summoner's place as a damage dealer with some very powerful supporting abilities. One of the subtler changes to the Summoner was the reduction in cost and casting time of your pets. This makes the job less punishing without messing with its difficulty. The job still has a learning curve, so there's going to be a difference between a Summoner that's playing on day 1 and a Summoner that's been playing for a few months. But regardless of how good you get with the Summoner, there are going to be moments when you die. Fortunately now, as soon as you're resurrected, you'll have enough MP to apply both of your dots, resummon your pet, and get right back into the fight. Also, they re-added an ability called Sustain, which allows you to heal your pet when it takes damage. So, thumbs up for that. With all of that said, if you didn't like the Summoner before, you're still not going to like it now. But if you were a fan of the job and what it's become, you're going to enjoy the changes. It's by no means perfect, but it's very far from being completely and utterly unplayable. My only issue with the Summoner now is that Bahamut has separation anxiety and prioritizes movement over attacking, even though he can't take damage. It's a bit annoying and he might need some therapy, but overall, if that's the only thing I have to complain about, I think they did a pretty good job. So with that said, the name of the game is Final Fantasy XIV. The name of the channel is iBluairJgR Gaming for Comedy. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment because those comments will help pay for Bahamut's therapy.